Good afternoon, Venom Samurai fans. I actually did see that. I've actually got some subscribers out there, so I want to send a big shout out to my 15 subscribers. I do appreciate it. Today, other than the song that I uploaded earlier, which is very funny, I suggest you go take a look at it if you want to have yourself a little laugh today. What I want to talk about is a subject that I find interesting, and I'm just wondering if you guys would find it interesting as well. I want to do kind of an introduction to a sect of science fiction that's out there right now that's very popular. And those of you who maybe you know about it, maybe you don't know about it, maybe you want to get a refresher on it, things like that, I wanted to introduce you to it. And the sect I'm going to talk about today is called the SCP Foundation. Now, for those of you who don't understand what SCP means, SCP literally stands for Secure, Contain, and Protect. Basically, this is supposed to be a shadow organization, kind of the power behind the power, They are the brains behind the throne, I guess you could say. They're power brokers, they're scientists, they are the best kept secret in the world. So what the SCP Foundation does is they go out and they look for anomalies, I guess you could say. Things that shouldn't exist but do. And some of these anomalies are helpful, some of these anomalies are hurtful, some of them are actually world-ending catastrophes. So it could be anything. There are literally thousands of SCPs, as they're called out there. They designate them as SCPs. And what this foundation does is their job is to, first off, secure them. As the name suggests, they secure, contain, and protect, which is, we'll start off with secure. Basically what these guys do is they have shadow agents all over the world, and they look for these anomalies. If they hear like an inkling of something weird going on somewhere, they send their shadow agents to investigate. And if it's bad enough, they send in what is known as the MTF, which is the Mobile Task Force. Now, all of the different Mobile Task Force have different names and all that. I'm not going to get into that. But the Mobile Task Force is there specifically to secure the site. They are not there to kill anything unless they receive word from their overseers, which is, that's the O5 Council. I'll get into that in just a second, but we'll stick with what they do first. So that's the first part of their name, secure. So next comes contain, containment. That's what they mainly do. They're not out there necessarily to kill these anomalies, because if you just kill them, that could have far-reaching, disastrous consequences. So what they will do instead is they will contain the anomaly and sorry, my phone just went off. They will contain the anomaly and will kind of just study it, just to see what the conditions of it is, whether it's harmful or helpful, whether they can make use of it or not, how hard is it to contain, that kind of a thing. Now, according to the SCP Foundation, there are multiple different levels of containment. The three that are the most common are safe. These are the ones that they don't take a whole lot to contain. They literally they almost are self-containing in many cases. They're considered safe to be around. Then there's Euclid. Euclid is the biggest class of containment. So Euclid is basically, it takes a little bit to contain these guys. It takes some very specific procedures to contain them. They're they are the one that also has the most breakouts, this is where we get into containment breaches, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But then there's the third class, which is not the final class, but it is the most dangerous that most people will talk about, and that is the Keter class. Keter class are world-ending anomalies. These are things that will literally bring about the end of everything. Okay, so if you ever hear of a Keter class anomaly getting loose, we're all screwed. It could end in different world-ending scenarios. They have different classifications for that. I'm not going to get into that because most people, they're not as interested in what the classification is so much as what is it. So that goes into the whole containment aspect. Then comes protect. Now, who exactly is the SCP Foundation protecting? Are they protecting the world? Are they protecting our nation? Are they protecting themselves? Are they protecting their families? There's no known reason, there's no known setup that the SCP Foundation has for who they're actually protecting. So a lot of the time these SCPs seem like they're being contained for the Foundation's own good. So it seems like they may be just protecting themselves, but maybe they're protecting Earth as an afterthought. Maybe they're not. There's no true altruistic side to the Foundation. These guys are shadow players. They live and die by secrecy. So the more anomalies they keep quiet, the quieter they're kept in the background. Nobody pays attention to them. And that is mostly due to the secrecy of the O5 Council. Now, you heard me talk about the O5 Council before. I said I would get to them, and here they are. The O5 Council are the overseers. That is literally what O5 stands for. Now, there are 13 members of the O5 Council, and they rotate. However, there are some members that are permanent members of the O5 Council. The most prevalent of which is O513. Now, O513 is death itself. Yes, death, the Grim Reaper, the embodiment of the end of life, is a member of the O5 Council. Now, him being a member of the O5 Council basically guarantees that the members of the O5 Council are immortal. They don't die. Now, there are different theories behind this. Maybe they made a deal with death. Maybe they have death under some kind of a leash or something like that. It doesn't matter. He basically ensures that the O5 Council will not die unless he deems it necessary. These are the guys that are the top dogs. They are the ones that make the biggest and baddest decisions. And sometimes they make it for the good, sometimes they make it for the bad. They don't make it always for the good of mankind. Sometimes they do it for their own personal gain. Now, underneath them are site directors. Site directors are basically, they're the ones that act under the O5 Council. So they are the guys in charge at individual sites around the world. Now, a site director can make a decision on par with the O5 Council, but only for his site. He can't dictate what happens at other sites. Now, then we go down into the researchers, which the researchers are basically, that's what they do. They watch the anomalies, they take data, they perform experiments, things of that nature. Then we have the MTFs. The MTFs are the hand of the council, the hand of the sites, the hand of the SCP Foundation. These are the guys that act. Then there's also field agents. Field agents are just what I said. They're field agents. They stay out in the world and they help to maintain the secrecy of the SCP Foundation. Now, on the very bottom of everything, I'm going to skip all of the what I like to refer to as what's referred to as the E-class, which is basically your everyday workers. These are the guys that are like the office workers and janitors and things like that, because of course you've got to have those. At the very bottom are the D-class. D-class are the cannon fodder. These are the guys that literally get yanked out of prisons, off the street. Whoever they want can become a D-class. And a D-class is not the class you want to be, because you are literally there for the sole purpose of dying. Let me say that again. You are there for the sole purpose of dying. Now, your death may or may not lead to greater discoveries with the SCPs. There are several different classifications of SCPs. Some D-class are lucky enough to survive their encounter with the SCPs. Most don't. That's why most of the D-class is built of death row inmates, guys serving life sentences in prisons, war criminals, things of that nature. These are guys that are bad people in a lot of cases. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just guys that were in the wrong place at the wrong time and got picked up by the SCP Foundation and were made a D-class because they needed to get rid of them. So that's a ballpark summation of what the SCP Foundation is. If you guys would like me to go into specific SCPs, I will gladly do that. I will need time to do some research on the different SCPs that are out there. I can tell you a few of my favorites. One that I'm actually working on as a project for my Java programming class is SCP-096, also referred to as the Shy Guy. So he's one of my favorites. Another one is SCP-173, the Sculpture. Best known for the SCP Containment Breach game. If any of you have ever played that, let me know in the comments down below. And then there's also 682, the Hard to Destroy Reptile. 682 is interesting, to say the least. He's both one of the greatest assets and biggest dangers to the society, to the Foundation ever. There's also SCP-049 and 035. SCP-049 is the Plague Doctor, and SCP-035 is the Possessive Mask. Both of these guys have been around for centuries. They hate each other, but they kind of have a mutual respect for each other at the same time. They hate each other's guts, but they have a mutual respect for each other as well. And there's also SCP-343. God! Yes! God is an SCP! Then there's so many more. I can't even name all of the ones that I absolutely love. There's just so many of them. But I'll end with one last one, and this is one that will make you laugh when I say it, but it's really one of the most important SCPs to know, which is SCP-999, otherwise known as the Tickle Monster. Yes, there is a SCP that is referred to in such a silly and childish way as the Tickle Monster. So if you guys want to hear more about SCPs, if you want to have me go over the specifics of some of my favorites or some of your favorites, I will gladly do that. Just leave me a comment down below. And while you're here, be sure to check on one of my more recent videos, either the Heartfelt Song or the Baptism of Jesse Taylor, which is one of my personal favorite videos. It actually works best for my voice. Or if you have a song that you'd like me to perform for you, let me know in the comments down below, and I will gladly do that for you. And in the meantime, this is Venom Samurai signing off once again.